We're good to go.
Hi, Jeanne-Marie. How are you?
I am good. Just had a little nervous little shake here that I couldn't hear you.
It's
How
all
are
good.
you, my dear Simone?
I'm good. Look, it's sunny and light still in Amsterdam at 8 o'clock in the evening. And
That's wonderful.
we're very excited about it because it's been pretty rough, like at the start to spring, summer, whatever it's meant to be. So thank you everyone for joining us. We're planning a nice broad topic this evening, which is to do with preparing for summer slowdown for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere and going into winter holidays for those who are down south. Also to acknowledge that this Sunday is a Father's Day in many places, so we'll definitely touch on fathers a little bit. Happy Father's Day to all those fathers out there. Very important role they play in our families, and all the different types of people who can be a father if there's not one actually in the immediate family. Then we also can just answer any of your questions that come in. So I've had one come in, which we can do whenever you like, Jeanne-Marie. But yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I've feel like I've just kind of gotten my life back. My daughter was in town for 10 days, so I was back in my full mama mode, taking her and her friend around. She was visiting from Scotland, where she's studying at the University of Glasgow. And so, yes, and it's beautiful here, finally. We've had a gray May, June gloom, as they call it here.
Okay.
But all is fine, and getting prepared to have a slow summer, like I hope a lot of you.
That's great. Welcome to everyone on the call. You are welcome during the call to add your questions in the chat box. You just click on the little chat box at the bottom and we'll get a notification. So if you have any questions about Montessori, whilst we're talking about summer slowdowns and giving you ideas, you're welcome to really ask us a question on any Montessori topic. We're happy to answer. Okay. So lovely to have you all.
So, Simone, do we have the Google document for all the questions, or you have them and you'll just ask them? I
I'll
don't
just
have
ask
it open.
them. Yeah, that's
Okay,
okay.
perfect.
So we'll start with Carolyn's question that came in before the show. She said, first of all, thank you for all the work you do and for making these available to us. I really appreciate the help and guidance. So I have two questions for you. My daughter, Selma, just turned 5, and she's tried to do Montessori at home in the best way she could. They live in Boston in a small apartment, have had to move from an even smaller one when she was 2, and the new place, it wasn't in the best of shape, and it's taken a lot of energy to make it functional. So she wasn't able to set up the environment as she'd hoped when they moved. Her room was okay, but the kitchen was definitely not a practical skills sort of place. So Boston is the most expensive city in the country when it comes to childcare. So she didn't go to Montessori school. And so while she has now got a Montessori-inspired public school, she's worried that she missed like the practical life skills like earlier. Now they've just been able to set up a section in their pantry where they can both work in the kitchen together, and she's excited about it and calls it a cooking skills. And she's just wondering if we have any suggestions on how to perceive the 5-year-old for some of the practical life skills in the kitchen when maybe the fundamentals that would have happened earlier aren't really there.
So I would start by saying it's never too late.
That's what I agree.
That's something I think that a lot of people think, oh, I didn't start early enough and all of this. It's never too late. And I'm a testament to that. I discovered Montessori when my children were beyond infant and so forth. So I would just, really take her lead and be very observant as to kind of the skills that need maybe a little bit more help and break up the activity so that skill that builds up on gets covered. So, the safety of some of the tools, and maybe just repeating and practicing the chopping or the peeling or different aspects. Your child better than any of us, and just really through your observation, and then really follow her lead. Like if it sounds like she's excited to be there helping you and such. So what a wonderful opportunity. Just, really take it from there and build up on that and make as much time in the kitchen with her as possible, really.
Yeah, and I think for those people who are kind of new to Montessori, the reason that we love practical life activities, which are just basically getting children included around the home, is because they learn to contribute to the family, and like not just that like the adult does everything and the child has to watch TV while we cook dinner, you know, that they're involved, they take part, they like to set the table, and the younger you start, the more they like to participate, and then they build on those skills as they go on. Also, I really love all the sequencing that goes along with practical life activities. So with a young child, they might just be, for example, measuring out some of the ingredients into the bowl, and then older children can really actually mix, and older children again might like to, hi, Jeanne-Marie's taking a photo on their phone. And then even older children will be able to do more and more steps independently. So we had a digital scale, so the children loved then reading out the numbers to see how to weigh the ingredients. I mean, actually, I was talking to Pam Staten in Australia, and she's done a beautiful pasta making activity with her infant community. And so things like pasta making would be great for a 5 or 6 year old, because there's lots of steps. It's very simple, like you just take 1 egg and 1 cup of flour, but the whole process of it coming together and having to work it through the crank machine, it's a very old pasta maker that you can just old fashioned, just with the hand crank it through, and it has to be done many times. That would be like a lovely activity to really build the confidence. And like with any of these practical life activities, if they're 2 or if they're 5, you're just always saying, okay, give as little help as possible and as much as necessary. So set things out for success. Everyone's like, oh, this would be chaotic. Why do you do baking with kids who are in my toddler classes? But it's so much fun because I don't expect them to, you know, be able to measure everything out themselves. So I have everything in bowls, and we take turns to add the ingredients, and they gradually build more and more skills. So hopefully that's helpful. Then her second question was, could you talk a bit about what the next phase should be in the Montessori approach once Selma turns 6? Do you have any suggestions of resources? So I think that's really interesting, because if for those of you who know a bit about Montessori and the 4 planes of development, you'll know that the first plane of development is 0 to 6, and then it goes 6 to 12, then 12 to 18, and 18 to 24. And Dr. Montessori recognized that there were similarities within these planes of development. So I work in 0 to 3, and you know, a little bit into 3 to 6. So I really work with the children in the first plane of development, and this kind of we often talk about the absorbent mind in this period, where they're picking things up like a sponge. Then the beautiful thing about the 6 to 12 age group is they move into elementary, and the whole world opens up. So rather than just being confined to maybe what's in their environment immediately surrounding them, they're looking to what's happening in the bigger world, and they can really imagine what might be happening in a different country, in space, in a prehistoric time, you know, with dinosaurs and things. So I think that curiosity you could definitely extend into the bigger world and connect the child to the world that way.
And to me, it really is the first plane, like what Simone is saying, that 0 to 6, especially the 3 to 6 year old, ask what. They're always wanting to label the environment. What is this? What is that? And then when they go into that second plane, it's why. Everything is why. Why does it work this way? Why the fair and unfair, all of this, like very kind of philosophical questions. And so for me, for Caroline asking about, you know, what would be next is even, you know, this practical life and in the kitchen, just to take that further is where does this food come from? Where does this spice come from? Let's look on a map. Let's look at the history. Like they want to know, dig just deeper, and you can just take them on this beautiful road of exploration and discovery. So just amazing. It's always following their lead, really, in any of the planes.
Yeah, I think that's lovely. Definitely these gray areas are really interesting. We've got a few people popping up. We just need to mute any that come up.
Yes, I'm trying to mute as they come on, but so when you come on, please mute yourself.
That's okay. I really also love, the gray areas, because this is kind of like, why do we do this at our house, and at our friend's house they do that? And they're starting to realize that it's not just a given. So in the 0 to 6 plane, it's about reality, concrete, you know, and they take it as given, you know, what's in front of them. And even more so than why, it's like, how does that happen? You know, so I think they're really beautiful questions. And I think with Montessori, instead of just giving the answers, we're always looking for ways to help them find out themselves. I don't know, maybe there's a neighbor that we could ask, or maybe we could go to the library and research that, Or should we do an excursion and go and see what would be happening there? So if your child doesn't go to a Montessori school, you could still create what they call going out, where you start to, children in a Montessori school get to plan their own excursions. So they make phone calls to make appointments. They plan their public transport. They maybe organize a parent to go along with them if they need some supervision or some guidance, and they plan the whole process. So on a small scale at home, you could also do something like a going out where you really deep dive into an area of interest.
And having a journal where you can plan those things and everything, that is very helpful, or activities that they're going to want to do later on. So,
and two resources I can think of is the Full Montessori, which is Pilar
Bewley, the Full Montessori. She actually started a group on Facebook about the second plane child. She has a second plane child and a first plane child at home, is homeschooling, is trained 6 to 12 as well, and 3 to 6.
And the other person is Millie Montessori on Instagram, Millie. So maybe I can put both those links into the show notes as well. Perfect. And he's working in the classroom and sharing a lot of what they're doing there, so that those ideas can be adapted at home as well.
And then just for cooking, I don't have it here. I must have loaned it out, but the person who runs Kylie from How We Montessori, and I forget her co-author, but they did a really nice book on the kitchen. I think
it's called Kids in the Kitchen, I think, right?
Yes, and it just, setting up the kitchen, different recipes, and for the different age groups. So highly recommend that one when you're setting up and looking for ideas as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so Jeanne-Marie, what should we do next? Should we move into summer holidays, or should we do fathers? What would you like?
I think we should honor our fathers. There's a beautiful day planned for them this Sunday, at least here in the U.S. It's Father's Day. And for me, I just wanted to honor them because they play a very important role in in our children, and they play an important role for our children. And I think we sometimes maybe not give them enough credit for just the support that they are. And for me, I just wanted to touch a little bit on what I perceive is the role of the father from the very beginning. We talk about in Montessori, it's interesting because we talk about the two fathers, the biological father and the psychological father. And I always say, in the best of both worlds, it is the same person. It's not always the case, and that's just the way life is. But in the most, it is always the same person. And when we say the psychological father, it's that from the beginning, it's the acceptance of the pregnancy. It's the acceptance of the fact that they will be a father, and how that influences the well-being of the birthing mother and so forth. And then later on, it will be being of support throughout the pregnancy, of support during the birth, and then again, the acceptance of who this child is, the gender, the way they look and such, and how that really influences our children as well, and just, the well-being of the family. But then it's really going to be how the father, for me, it's important to let them have really a way to establish their own routines. I think, and I think I see only moms on this call right now, and I hope more fathers will join us and will watch this on the replay and such. But I perceive sometimes that as moms, we tend to say, no, it has to be done this way. But it's okay. There are different ways of doing, and I think we really need to take a step back and let the fathers really have their way of showing up and having their way of bonding with their children, that from the very beginning, we need to give them space to create those routines with their newborns. Skin to skin with dads is very important. Doing little baby massages, having a particular song, having a particular time of day. I remember I had a client who his thing was to put the baby in the baby wrap and go walk the dog. That was like his daily routine, and that was his way of bonding with his child. And to this day, that's their thing that they do during the day. It gives mom some time alone, and so forth. So, as moms, I think we need to trust that they are also needing to step in, and they need connection with their children to be able to also develop those paternal instincts and those caring instincts. So we need to give them the space to do that. Is really what I wanted to share.
Yeah, and I think that it is lovely to have some common values, so that you're parenting from a similar place, but yes, to actually allow the father to contribute in their unique way. That it doesn't have to be exactly the same. The child will work it out as well. So one of you might be more strict and the other more funny and playful, and the child will know who to go to when they want to be having rough and tumble, and they'll go to who when they really need to let something out, they'll know who to go to as well. So I think that's always really beautiful.
It is.
Also to acknowledge that there's some beautiful things that happen here in the Netherlands. Things like fathers working a lot 4 days a week, and they take a pappadag. So it seems crazy, but it's an unpaid day, but it just also shows how much they value living with their family. You know, that it's not really about your income. Take a fifth less, but actually be, with your children in these early years when you're laying foundations. So I think that's really a beautiful thing that people it's why do we work 5 days a week? Because that's just what we've always done. And actually what I'm really enjoying to see is that there's actually many more stay-at-home dads now, and maybe the mum's going out to work. So I was speaking to a father this week, saying, do you find that because you're caring mostly for your baby that you get any, noticeable differences and things like that? And he said, not really. It's really becoming quite accepted. And I think that's also lovely to consider. The other thing is that sometimes there isn't a biological father involved. There is always a biological father, but there's not. But it may just be from a sperm bank, or maybe a father that's not involved. And then are there other male role models that can fill that gap for your child? Is that something that you want to create? And that's something too important. I also don't know if you ever read the book Raising Boys by Steve Biddulph.
No.
It's a little outdated these days, to be fair. But the one part that I really liked about that book was about there's different stages that a boy goes through, and that, often that the early years, it is a lot of bonding and attachment, maybe with the primary carer, but then in this, almost the second plane, it's when the father figure really takes a bigger role. This is all very traditional, so you've got to, open your mind a little bit to how families are evolving these days. But I thought that was interesting. And then it goes into, from 12 onwards, how important male figures are. That's not necessarily part of the family. It could be an uncle, it could be someone on a sports community and things like this. So it's also just looking that we're showing our children that there are many people, it takes a village to raise them, but our fathers definitely deserve their own special day. I asked in the group if there was anyone who wanted to share a special memory of their own father, or some rituals that they have in their homes. And Lynn's very kindly, she wrote that she had family meetings to discuss anything, and her dad always led those meetings. So that's something that she always remembers. And they're planning to do the same, but the lead is going to change each time. And Jeanne-Marie, do you have any memories yourself?
So when you asked that, what came to mind is I was actually separated. My parents separated when I was quite young, but I remember, for me, I give credit to my father for my art appreciation, because every Sunday he would come pick us up and we would go to a museum or to an art gallery, and that was kind of our Sunday afternoon with him. Or Buster Keaton movies and Charlie Chaplin movies. I remember the silent movies, and those are very fond memories. Or sitting at a terrace of a cafe and just people watching in Paris, and those are really fond memories that I have, of that time. And I'm still very, very close to my father today. So.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Mm.
I do remember my father working a lot when we were small, but I do remember on holidays that if we were ever in a swimming pool, we could just jump up onto his shoulders and dive off as many times as we wanted. And now he's been an amazing grandfather. He really enjoys being retired and having time with his grandkids. And so it's been, yeah, you wouldn't know that he was a hands-off dad at all when we were kind of young, and when we were younger. He really loves, and he's been adorable. Also, I think it's been really lovely. I always think that my kids have got a great father, that he's always been connected, and that they're 18 and 17, but he was one of the first dads I ever saw with them carrying the baby, you know, on his chest and taking them for walks. And now you see that a lot, but it was very sweet. And people realized, oh yeah, dads can change nappies too. And I have found I have a lot of old art drawings and things, and some I just couldn't get rid of were the ones where he's very creative and can draw quite well. So they have maps of different things, and they've just added and added and added to it. So that was the thing that they would do together that I'm terrible at drawing. It's not something I can do, but I just love that there's special things that our kids will always remember from their time with their dad, and maybe special meals that they cook that, you know, you don't cook. And so
definitely.
Anyway.
And that's why, to me, it's really, really important to give that space and really, you know, ask the dads what is it that you want to share, and really give them that space to have that special relationship with their children. Yeah. So thank you
to all the dads.
Yes.
Great minds.
Yes, thank you.
So there's one more that just came into the chat room, and it says, it just moved up. Nukrita says, I don't remember a lot with my father. He also was working a lot, but I do see that my husband and my daughter has this ritual of making pancakes every Sunday morning, and every family picnic they plan together. And very often he puts it to bed with a sweet story.
Aww.
And yeah, they're so special, right? Like this cooking together and having their special recipe. Really, really lovely. Elena said, I share the same experience like Jeanne-Marie. My father left the family when I was around 4 years old. I wish I could celebrate and honor my father, but I love to see the lovely relationship between my husband and my daughter. Yeah. Beautiful.
Beautiful. And I do have to say, I also honor my father, my children's father, who has been just so supportive of the work that I do with all of the families around the world. Like, you know, it's not, for me, it's not only the fathers, but our partners that really help us be better mothers as well. So I have to say that. Yeah.
Adeline also wanted to say that her father was great as well. So we've got that on the record.
Wonderful.
And he was running a business, but he was present anyway. Yeah, it's super special. And that's also another thing, is just like, maybe they do work. It doesn't mean that they're not being present. It often means that they're providing the sustenance, and that's their role. So that's also a legitimate kind of thing. And actually, to give them credit, that when they come home, they might actually be tired and they need to transition, because sometimes we think, they're home here, the children. And actually,
that's a great point you bring up, Simone, because that is something that with the private families that I've worked with is oftentimes like, telling the fathers, like, take some time before you come home. I mean, even if it's just walking around the block 5 times, or, you know, like, don't jump in from being a full-time, you know, having your intellect all day, and then you walk into the home and there's, you know, your children are waiting for you. It's going to be a whole other job. So take some time for yourself to transition into that period. And the same thing for working mothers. But I think, you know, the dads just feel sometimes they're exhausted from their day. And like you say, we're exhausted from our day, and we just say here, and it can be a little much for them. So give them a little space to breathe, especially if they are being the full-time provider of the family.
Gorgeous.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to transition now into our summer slowdown, or I guess winter warm-up, maybe, for the people who are down south, because winter's good for getting warm and cozy, right? If I'm ever looking for a holiday, I'm looking for like a campfire and doing lots of warm, cozy things, or outdoors, you know, with some great snow and all those kind of things as well. Jeanne-Marie, do you want to start with some of your ideas?
So my idea for summer, and this is something that I did with my children, is when we are off school, so those first few days, it's really about just slowing down and sleeping in and so forth. But very kind of quickly is I really suggest to sit down and do a bucket list, do a list of all these things that you really never have time to do during the school year because you're on a schedule and such, and just like brainstorm with your children of these different things that you would like to do. And it can be, a picnic at a certain park. It can just be a lazy beach day, or it can be a hike or a camping trip or whatever, so that you really let them and you really share all of these things that you know that you will be able to do because you're going to have a bit more time during the holidays. And I know this isn't possible for everybody because not everybody has time off during our children's holiday. And, I know for a time I was working in a corporate job. I did not have that. So it was more about finding good, quality camps or activities for our children, or seeing with family members or friends and such. I know when my children got a little older, as soon as my eldest turned 6, she would actually fly to France to go spend the summer with her grandparents, things like that. So depending on what your situation is just plan it out a little bit so that it doesn't feel too stressful, but just don't put too much on that list. Like, make it so that it really is going to be a slow recuperating. Children do not need to be scheduled out throughout the day. For me, slowing down means just, having a picnic in the backyard and just not, getting out of your pajamas all day. That's fine. So just, be okay with doing nothing and being bored. Children need to be bored. I mean, I posted the other day about how boredom is very beneficial. That's where we are, creative, when we're have nothing to actually do and we're just being in the moment.
Yeah. Beautiful. Adeline shares as well that she only travels to see family in France, and they keep it light and they see people we care about and who care about us. So that's really important, isn't it? To simplify, to really work out what's important to you rather than trying to do everything. And she says that she always sets up a little prepared environment, which is lovely.
Nice.
Because I also think it's really fun when you travel because you realize how little you need. We have been a couple of times down to Zeeland here in the Netherlands, which is a couple of hours south of Amsterdam. And there's a beautiful windswept beach down there. We rent a little strandhuisje, which is about 20 square meters. So it just has bunk beds. There's 4 bunk beds and a loft where you can sleep, a double bed up there. There's a little kitchenette, a little table and a chairs where you can sit, and that's it. The rest is you open the doors and you just run on the beach. And when I go there, I'm just really reminded how little you need, Mm-hmm. What came up for me when I was thinking of summer slowdown in particular was sensory experiences. So for me, I grew up in Australia, and I think of summer fruits, dripping mango down my arms and the lovely cherries and, those kind of experiences. Bare feet is something that I wish my children had had more experience with because, and so now it's even on my Wednesday lunch break when I have a break between 2 classes, I take off my shoes if the sun's out and I put my feet into the grass in the park to really ground. I find that really important. Kids love water. So here in Amsterdam, we don't have a lot of water parks and things, but there's always a splash pool. And, it shows how little, again, they need. It's just a tiny little circle with as many kids as possible just running around in water. So I think of that. And also one of my kids' favorite things was to fill up a bucket of water with a paintbrush, and they would paint the pavers and watch them dry. And then they'd paint the pavers and they'd watch them dry again. And of course, window washing is one of our favorite activities in the classroom, and it translates really well to home. So you can get a little spray bottle. Even the regular size ones, I'm finding they're still having quite a lot of success in my classroom from, 1.5 to 2 years old. So I think that's really beautiful with the little squeegee as well. Picnics in the park, making tents. And those kind of sensory experiences. Think about what you remember from your own childhood, and those I think looking at it really comes alive. I remember listening to a podcast, and they were saying that memories are created often by rituals, so doing the same things often.
Yes.
And then there was a nice one, which is another thing that creates a memory is actually a surprise. So actually doing something out of the ordinary can also be a really beautiful way to create memories. So I find it harder to be more spontaneous and to think of the surprise ones, but I'm good on rituals. I can do the same thing every year. I'm a creature of habit.
But which is good, which is why, just brainstorming on different ideas so that you have kind of your surprise list in your back pocket, and then you can just, spring one up that maybe your children weren't expecting. Like, think of things ahead of time is also a way to pepper it with surprise.
Yeah, it can be simple. Adeline also adds she takes 3 books and 3 small materials that they know that she likes, and then she's just surrounded by people, more people than usual parents, and they like going into the garden and helping her parents, and a little aperitif with the brothers, and to her going to France is really relaxing. So that's lovely to hear, because I know that actually sometimes returning home can be quite stressful, and they spend a lot of time in cars and visiting different families. So it sounds like Adeline's simplified it to make it really lovely. I actually also put together, I can link to it on the show notes, but I once did a blog post about traveling with children as well, and some suggestions, because being on the road with young children is not always fun.
Right.
So I'll add that link as well. But basically, like, activities that we would, let's take some books, even those soft books where you can open and close zippers and do press studs and things like that. My children always really loved Magnadoodles, the little portable ones where you can, because you can't really lose anything. It doesn't make a big mess. It wipes clean. So they were always useful. I always took Play-Doh if we were in a vehicle. I'm not sure if you can take Play-Doh on an airplane anymore, but Play-Doh was always a favorite.
And I like the those sticker books, the repositional sticker books that you can, kind of tell stories and move them about. Those are nice as well.
Little vehicles and Schleich animals, the really solid ones are beautiful as well. And what's been great is, washi tape, that Japanese paper tape. You can actually kind of make pictures on the back of an airplane seat in front of you, or you can make a road for vehicles to travel along. You can even just make little pieces, and the little ones love to pick it off, and then you can stick it on again. You can pick it off, anything to get 5 minutes of
and I would also say, sometimes I think parents think that the children traveling like on an airplane, that it's going to be a long flight, they need to stay seated the whole time. They do not. Like, as soon as it is safe to get up and walk about, I go and explore with the little ones, because we know that they need motion and activity, and you just, walk around with them. There's many people that actually enjoy having a conversation with your children. So, let them go explore. They can't get away. We're on the airplane. So, right. They're not going to get lost. And it's a wonderful way to, also keep them busy and active.
Yeah. Efrat very kindly added that we can take Play-Doh on planes, and it's safe every time, which is really sweet. I was traveling with my sister and brother-in-law and their 2 young children 2 years ago, and we were sitting at the airport, and their parents wanted to be sitting on the iPhone, doing their thing. So I was like, okay, well, Auntie Simone's in charge then. And so all we did was we went and sat by the window while we were waiting to board the plane, and watched all of the vehicles that were doing their things. And I was like a big kid going, look at that. Oh my gosh, there are things going on. It's right in front of you. It just means you might not get to, catch up on Instagram. But, if you keep it engaging and interested, it's going to make a much more, fun trip for everybody.
And I like what Elena has put, because it does not involve at all any tablets or iPads. It's just about driving. So they drive from Germany to Italy, and they make stops in nature. And in the car, we like to do a radio play, sing together, and play a game like seeing what somebody else is seeing. I know I remember playing that of, I Spy something red, or we would do especially when you travel in Europe, there's all the European license plates, or there's plenty of things to be seeing outside. So I avoid all of the entertaining, tablets and movies in the car, because there's a lot to just watch that is just going by.
Yeah. And Lena has a question about traveling with a 1-year-old. She says, my daughter is almost 13 months, but she's mostly interested in putting everything in her mouth and does not seem to grasp how to do activities, posting stickers. On our last flight, she mostly just practiced standing up and ate a lot. But this time around, she's much more active. Any ideas for activities to keep her in my arms but engaged in something? It will just be me and her. So ideally, activities that aren't going to leave me with a lot to clean up. Thank you. Oh, we're looking at a 5-hour flight.
So there, Lena, just what I just said, like you do not need to keep her seated that entire time. As long as your flight is not going through, terrible turbulence and you need to keep your seatbelt on, as soon as it is safe to walk, you're just going to be going up and down that aisle and walking. And there's so many different people to look at and different things and such. So I would definitely know that is a possibility, that you don't have to stay in the seat. And then, like Adeline was saying, books I think are wonderful. And maybe something to listen to, or like what, Simone was saying, that little doodle thing. But for me, it's more like they just need to explore. So go see where everything is. Go see what the, people are doing, the hostess and the stewards and all of that. Just explore your surroundings.
Yeah, I think audiobooks sometimes keep them interested. Books, just turning pages. I was sitting next to a lady on a flight, and she had this very active, very young toddler. And my tray had fallen down, and so I was putting it back up. And then she was fascinated by the tray, the little clasp, open and closing. So I just did for 15 minutes at least, just opening and closing, and it was driving the mummy insane. But I'm like, no, this is her point of interest right now. Why are we going to waste such a great opportunity? And I have all the patience in the world. I have time to kill. I'm on an aeroplane. I also am not a great person. I'm a bit of a toddler. I don't like to sit in one space. So look for what, just taking things out of the pocket in front. What's in this pocket? There's a magazine. Oh, yeah, there's a menu. Let's see what's on the menu, And if you're excited about it, then you just have to keep them interested.
And I like to suggest getting, maybe things that they haven't seen before. So there's this element of surprise, but it can be a small, makeup pouch with different little containers in it to open and close. Just, things like that, very simple things that they are discovering. And
those lip balms as well, where the lid goes on and off a lip balm. They love that kind of thing as well. Yeah. Adeline also had a 10-hour flight at almost 12 months, and they played with the spoon and the forks that they had, and some of her containers with caps and lids. And then we did books. And there's diaper change and talking to people. Lena said, thank you so much. Your answers are so practical and doable. Yeah, so really what you can see as well is Montessori is not necessarily just about all the activities and perfect trays. It's about what is actually my child interested in, how can I be very respectful to her, creating movement opportunities anytime you are able. As soon as the light goes off, you can walk, you can climb. Often now in airports, there's often the kids climbing area, so climb as much as possible before you get on the plane and things like that. Sorry, Jeanne-Marie, you were about to say something?
No, I was going to say also, if you can at all, some of those longer flights, try to schedule them during either their nap time or nighttime. Those are also ideal, just because they will also sleep if they are in that rhythm. So.
Yeah, I think definitely, if you get onto an aeroplane around 9 o'clock in the evening, it's very hard for them to stay awake more than a couple of hours. So that was always a bit of a saver for us. We had some really bad. We had one bad flight where there was an 8-month-old.
So if you put them in pajamas or whatever.
Yeah. Sorry, just cut out a little bit there. The other thing is I always love notebooks. So I always have a notebook packed. And that could be like a travel journal or a passport, those kind of things as well. So you can do drawings, very simple games. We like the I Spy. There's many games like memory games and things as they get a bit older. Like we pack, what do we take when we go to Paris, and we take our underpants, our umbrella, and they have to remember all of those lists of things. I remember we did spend hours and hours doing that. But there's some great music now as well for kids, which is really lovely that you could enjoy it. So there's some traveling tips for sure. Even just what are some destinations, just even locally, I'm thinking sea and woods and you know, there's so much opportunity to explore. And even, I guess, if it's winter months, it just means there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing, they like to say in Scandinavia.
Exactly.
So you just need to layer up and get out there, right?
Yep.
But I mean, I love sandy days. It was really funny when we first moved to the Netherlands. My kids were 4 and 5 years old, and so we decided we'll catch the train and we'll go to the seaside. And I've grown up on the Pacific, you know, on the east coast of Australia, with beautiful crystal clear water and lovely waves. And we got to the coastline, and I had an empty yogurt container. That was what we didn't have any buckets or anything like this. So it was an empty plastic clear yogurt container and some sticks to dig with. And they just whipped off their clothes, ran around the underpants, filled up this bucket, and they held up. And I went, that's not quite the Pacific. It was like this murky gray water. I'm like, oh dear. But you know what? They didn't. They loved it just as much.
They didn't know the difference. Exactly. That's funny.
So really, have no judgment, just provide what you can. Some of my favorite days are just packing a picnic and taking a blanket and going to sit by somewhere.
I see that Elena has taken the camera. Did you want to share something, Elena?
No.
Or ask a question, or
no. You've been put on the spot.
Sorry. Elena is one of the parents in the parenting school. So I know we have Zoom calls like this every week. So okay. I recognize and know that she was looking forward to this show and maybe asking you some questions, Simone. So that's why.
Well, you're welcome to ask away. I also had it as a very practical thing, which is about bags, because there's no, children aren't pretty much by the time they're walking, they can have their own little backpack where they carry their own things. And there's some great options available now. It used to be really hard to find a small little backpack, and now there's some great ones. In that same blog post, there's a few suggestions. But I love it because they can have their own bottle that they can fill up with water. They can have their hat and their sunglasses, and they can have a book and something to play with. They can have a small cracker, and then they're really able to manage a lot of this themselves. They're so excited. They can take a little toy that they like, a soft toy, a blanket, whatever it is that they enjoy, and they feel so proud that they're walking around the airport with their little backpack too. And then, then we just got bigger, really. They started pulling along a roll-on very soon after that. And, that's a Montessori thing, isn't it? It's like children are capable. The parent doesn't have to be the one carrying 100 bags and the child, running around. They love to be involved. The heavier the bag, the better.
Yeah, and to me, it's again, this whole notion of preparing the environment. We're just preparing them and having them prepare the bag so that they know what's in it, so that they know what they will need. I mean, there's this element of excitement that they just really enjoy. Like you say, they are very capable, and we don't need to be doing everything for them, that this is part of their experience as well. So definitely include them in.
One thing that just reminded me is when you said prepared environment, it does make me think that even if it's not your house, when you get to where you're staying, you can just take some time to talk with your child, even if they're very young. Now, how are we going to set up a space here that's going to be inviting for you? Because if you just sit on the floor and look around, you'll first see which lamps they're going to pull over and which things are in the wrong spaces. Oh, are there plates and things you don't want them to be playing with in the kitchen? Or how am I going to maybe get some elastic bands to tie it closed? Can I put down just a little area where they can get a plate for their snack and a glass and make things very simple in the kitchen? Is there a place that we can just establish as this is where we're going to put our shoes and our coats and our bags when we arrive home? Let's create a little shelf from this windowsill with a puzzle and your vehicles and what else we've brought, some books, and create a little space. And how can we make the bedroom a little bit more accessible? So I'm going to lay out some clothing for you to choose. So we can just make a mini prepared environment, because there's, you've got lots of time on holidays, and you can take your time to practice all of those skills that maybe in daily life you don't have as much time for.
And it's so true, because I'm thinking of even myself when I'm traveling alone. Like when you get into a hotel room, you kind of need to make it your own, right? You set things out the same way. So it's the same thing for children. And you telling the story reminded me of when my daughter was 18 months. We did an exchange, and a home exchange with our apartment in Paris. and the woman had sent me photos of the living room area, and she was a single woman who had a lot of knickknacks and everything. And all I asked was, would it be possible for you to move all the knickknacks that were right at the height of my daughter just up, so that so that I wouldn't be stressed about her touching or breaking anything. And she just moved everything up, and then those lower shelves were safe to, for my daughter to put maybe her own toys, or not to have anything tempting to play with that, was inappropriate. So, yeah.
I also just thought of family, because when we travel and we see family, this can be interesting, because not everyone's familiar with the Montessori approach and may not be on the same page as us, and how we can deal with that. As well as, even I had some families visit back into the UK, and they were kind of shocked with how maybe other parents were parenting their children, and how they kind of dealt with questions like, oh, are you just letting her get away with that? And they found that very difficult. So have you got any tips on family? And
that's kind of a tougher one in first of all, your relationship with your family. But, one thing I do say is you need to keep on modeling how you're parenting. Like, it's not because, there's families or family members that maybe disapprove or don't understand or anything, that you need to change anything. Like, you need to stay consistent for your child. And for me, what I have found personally is I only really share if I'm asked. I don't start saying, we do this way because just because, maybe they're not interested and they don't want to know. Or so kind of my motto is I only give advice if I'm asked, which I kind of learned the hard way with my own family members.
I also like to do a lot of translating. So, for example, if you have a family member who's more extroverted, they might run over to a little baby and pick them up and not really tell them what they're going to do. And your baby might be used to you saying, "Oh, I'm going to pick you up now. I'm going to change your nappy," and then you wait till they raise their arms a little bit, and then you pick them up. And so that you can kind of what I try to do to respect both parties is to say, oh, it looks like, your auntie really wants to pick you up, and you're really saying, oh, I'm not quite ready to be picked up right now. So you kind of mediating between the two, because you don't want to just stomp right in and say, oh, the baby doesn't like that, because you come across as really, super protective or something like this. So I find that useful. Or for a grandparent who's looking a bit worried when the children are jumping on the sofa, you could say something like, oh, at home we are allowed to jump on the sofa. Should we check with grandma if it's okay if we jump on her sofa? Oh, it sounds like it's important to grandma. She's worried you might fall. So let's save the jumping for at home. Let's find somewhere else we can jump that feels safe for everybody. And then you're kind of translating between the two. Does that make sense?
I love that, because I always, when you talk about translating, for me, it's always from the child's point of view, but I love that you're using it also for the adults and the other family members. That's perfect.
So you say it's important to, before anything, it's important to grandma, it's important to you, and then, no one can really deny that. No one's right or wrong. And how can we come up with a creative solution that's going to be okay for everyone?
Love that.
I think heading outdoors can be great as well. So if there's a family member who's really worried about what's going on in their house, it's I think that we might pack our bags and go for a little walk around the block. Who'd like to come? So that can be really helpful too. You just sometimes need to.
And I mean, for me, I remember, at my in-laws, it was more like putting activities outside. So most of the play outside, it's not really a prepared environment for young children. They're living on their own. They have knickknacks everywhere and might not be appropriate for little ones. So taking that prepared environment outside. Yeah.
You could also say, oh, I see lots of knickknacks down here and they seem really special to you. And I'm worried that, someone such and such is going to touch them. Would it be okay for me to move them up to a higher shelf, or what would you like me to do about it? I'll do my best to protect them. But I just want to let you know that they do look very inviting, very attractive. And, again, trying to meet everyone's needs can be really tricky. So has anyone got any questions for us? I think we've covered a lot. We've covered summer, fathers. Winter. Shall we delve into some winter things?
Sure. I
Oh,
mean,
I'm asking
winter,
the girl from California.
I know. For me, I forget what winter is all about. I tend to not travel to winter lands anymore.
Yeah, that's really funny. I do love winter in Amsterdam. Things get dark and the days get short and cozy. And we actually spend a lot of time indoors, but it feels like a baking season. We do a lot of making. So that can be really cozy and intentional, you know, just slowing down and being inside. In Europe, we have quite cozy homes because we spend lots of time indoors, but they definitely get out. They have good rain clothes. Like we cycled, I think -16 was the coldest I've ever cycled through to go to school, and schools never close. So you just cycle on, which is great because in Australia, I'm waiting for like not too windy, not too hot, not too, rainy, perfect weather. And here you really just have to, as I said, I think today's the first sunny day we've had, at least in a couple of weeks. So you have to just seize the moment and go out and do these things. I love ice skating as well. Here in Amsterdam, we're really lucky that in the winter months, you have some ice skating rinks outside, which are lovely. So I think they're becoming more popular. Even in Sydney, they set one up on Bondi Beach, which is really nice. So that could be a really fun thing. They have great skates these days with 2 blades. So kids are almost just learning to walk on the ice. And they also can push like a little penguin around, which gives them some stability. In Amsterdam, they use chairs really to just push them around. And they're great ice skaters from a very young age. So they put my ice skating to shame for sure. But that's always brilliant and lovely. And just going for a walk and finding a pebble, you know, can be great in summer or winter or any of these months, right?
Yes. And it's just, you know, for me, slowing down is also just going at their pace, like just take a breather and just enjoy this, you know, this fleeting moment, because they're not going to be young forever. And, then you'll have, like I just had my 22-year-old home, and she was a busy, needed to see friends and do this and go here and go that. And it was great because I slowed down work-wise to be with her. But the just slow and being, playing in a puddle of water, it does not last forever. So enjoy it.
Yes. I also wanted to mention there's some children who still like routine, like not necessarily a schedule where it has to be by the minute, but they like to wake up and then they like to have a cuddle and then they like to have their breakfast and then they like to get dressed. And so be careful of that too, because you might think, oh, how nice, we can slow down, we can have a pajama day, we can have unstructured time and all these things. And then you might have one of those kids that really likes order. Toddlers can really like order. So also be very aware of that and cognizant. If your child isn't coping with the very free things, you may want to say, okay, let's plan an outing in the morning and let's plan this in the afternoon. So you have a tiny bit of structure within a very loose arrangement. There's a question that's just come in.
Yes, and it's a good one for you about a 3-year-old that has a nice Montessori environment at home, and she can do a lot of things, but constantly wants company. She needs me there all the time. And if I leave to do something else, she stops engaging in her work.
Yeah, so I think basically it means that we're trying to build their independence. And I do this very gradually. So for example, I just make sure that maybe I sit 30 centimeters further away when I'm observing her. And then I'm noticing how many times I'm leading the play and when actually I can just step back and let her, engage the ideas and actually not interrupt when they're actually focused, like not naming, like that's the red one and that's the blue one. It's just like let them get on and do their thing, and then when they turn around for feedback, then things. And then I like to practice the pop out. So I say, oh, I'm just going to go and put the kettle on and I'll be right back. And then she might be upset, but just keep it really boring. I'm just going to put the kettle on and then I come back and sit back down. And then you build up to, and I'm going to make the cup of tea and then I come back down and make it as, nice for you. Then also involve her. Sometimes I just said, okay, they don't want to be by themselves. I'm going to be cooking now. You're welcome to come and help me cook. And just be very calm and clear that, while they want me to keep playing, I'm going to be cooking now. You can help me with the cooking and simplify an activity for them to help in the kitchen, or they could bring something into the kitchen, but I make it a bit boring if I don't, want to be the entertaining, the person who's always entertaining. So I just gradually build the skills. I don't expect to okay, I heard this Montessori show and now I'm going to go and they're going to have to play by themselves. It's a really gradual process that you build up the trust, just popping to make a cup of tea, then, you know, inviting them, oh, I'm going to put the washing on. So you're getting your things done as well, and they're welcome to join you or not. So that's kind of how I start building independence. Also some 3-year-olds aren't so independent, and really by 4, I see it's huge changes in those children. So know that if you're just kind and calm and understanding, like the more I feel like we push them away and say, oh, you should be able to do this yourself, they almost cling more. So just being really okay and giving a calm.
And I would also add, like, when you are, you know, next to them, you can also be doing your own thing. Like, you could be reading a book or journaling, or, you know, doing an observation journal or sewing something, so that you can say, I'm doing my work. What are you doing? Kind of. So it's sometimes, you know, and I've noticed it in the classroom where they are at that age, they are very independent in doing their work, but they do like having somebody close by doing their own thing. So you're kind of there in presence, but you're doing your own thing. So don't feel that you have to be completely engaged in the game or what you're doing, but you can be present and doing what you need to be doing as well.
Yeah. So in the last minute or two, what's going on for you, Jeanne-Marie? What have you got coming up now that it's June?
What have I got coming up? I have some travel, actually. I'm going back to France for 3 weeks in July. And then when I come back, I go to China for 10 days to do some Montessori workshops in Beijing. And just, I, you know, have my membership that the doors will open again in August. So if anybody's interested, let me know. There's a wait list also, and I will be sharing more about that. And then the parenting school that I'm actually wrapping up this week, we will also open the doors later on in the fall. So that's really what I have got going. And also my book. I have a book that just published in France. What was it, last month? The 100 Golden Rules of the Montessori Method, that is right now only available in French. But that's kind of my little world here.
We'll definitely add a link to that in the show notes. So send those links through to me, Jeanne-Marie, and we'll include those. And I've got, starting on the 24th of June, a great online boot camp for 2 weeks, which is going to help people set up Montessori playgroups around the world. So I'm basically going to open the kimono and tell everyone what I did to start my classes, Jacaranda Tree Montessori, how I work with parents and children, the kind of things, activities that that you can set up, how you can work with parents, budgets, and everything. So I'm really looking forward to getting started. We've already got a great group together, and I haven't actually officially launched. So look out on your inbox if anyone's interested in signing up for that. I did notice a question just came in from Pata. It says, hi, you both look great. Thank you. I have questions about an almost 3-year-old doesn't want to say sorry or thank you. Both parents and I are not making her say it. We model all the time, and her friends say those to her too. When are the kids developing empathy or gratitude? And that's actually really interesting, because grace and courtesy lessons usually start around 3 years old, the 3 to 6, because they're moving from the unconscious absorbent mind to the conscious absorbent mind. So that's when you can give really a lesson and they can consciously learn and practice it. What do you think, Jeanne-Marie?
Yes, I mean, for me, it's to keep on modeling and just, you know, that repetition, and to not ask that they say sorry, because unfortunately then we're training them to just say sorry no matter what, and it becomes something that they say with no real emotion, no real feeling. You know, they'll hit somebody and go sorry, and there's no real meaning. So and I think also, you know, how Simone says about translating, just being there to kind of, you know, sportscast what is going on, and asking if the other child is okay, and can we get her something to make her feel better and such. But really it's about modeling. For me, truly, it's not something that we force. We do a lot of role play, which is what we do when we do the grace and courtesy lessons, where we act things out. And most often it's interesting, because children, when we do those grace and courtesy lessons, they get it, they know it, but they haven't yet internalized it. So they know all the rules and the etiquette, but haven't yet internalized it for themselves. So just keep at it, and through the repetition, they will learn it.
And also just to say that whilst I said from 3 and above, please start the modeling from birth because they're going to pick up that unconsciously the more that we model it as well. So I don't want to just say it starts from 3. So Nukrita says, great, thanks a lot. And Adeline says, thank you, ladies. Pata says, thank you. Maybe next time. Adeline says, exciting, Jeanne-Marie. How can I get it? I mean, the French book about Montessori. So we'll definitely put that in the show notes. And Kriti says, exciting. Thank you so much. Elena says, thank you. Oh, there it is. Thank you so much for all your helpful tips. Beautiful.
It's available online, but we'll put the link in the show notes for sure.
Awesome. Okay. Elena says, thank you so much for all the helpful tips. I'm already excited to see your book come out in other languages too, Jeanne-Marie. I already have the Montessori Toddler from Simone. Oh, excellent. Thank you. Patty says, thank you so much. And merci from Adeline. So thank you to everyone who was live on the call tonight. We had some great participation over there. Have a happy summer. Jeanne-Marie and I will hopefully be back after the summer with more the Montessori show. And it's always lovely to see everyone from around the world. Signing off from Amsterdam. Bye-bye.
Yes, bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.